Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rيتشاد Castelline. I'm a Dutch-Canadian entrepreneur, originally a journalist. I do a few different things now at the moment. I'm not going to go into too much about myself, but I do. But one of the things I do is publish blockchain news for the past few years as a publisher. So I've had a lot of different things come across my desk. I first got involved in this scene, I guess, in 2015. 14 actually, and believe it or not, that makes me an old timer. So this is how young this industry is. I think the word tokenomics really was only born maybe last year, late last year, early this year. Dr. John Lipinger, the scientist at MIT, he uses it a lot. He's a business partner of mine and a good friend, and we do some things together. And so it's an area that I'm very interested in. Now, if I want to describe what tokenomics is, really, you know, it was Bitcoin. Then it was blockchain, then it was these financial instruments called ICOs, and now we're kind of thinking of tokenomics, tokenomy. What happens when we tokenize the world, and what does that look like in the future? For real-world assets and for digital assets. What is the impact of these new technologies that have evolved from Satoshi Nakamoto's blockchain, and where are we taking it in the future? I think that's the interesting part, because like the internet, it has the potential to affect a lot of different industries, but blockchain is also kind of like IPv4.6 or IPv6. It's the technology behind the internet. Most consumers don't really care what blockchain is, and they may never know what blockchain is. They just know that things work better, faster, smoother, quicker, cheaper, more efficiently. Maybe some of the first parts you'll see in the world is in Kuwait, remittance services, for instance, where expats want to send money home. If they want to do that now, people have to use MoneyGram and other services, and it costs 20 to 30%. Well, with blockchain, we can get that down to near zero transfer costs, which makes a substantial saving. But the consumer is not going to know that it's a blockchain. It's done that for them. They're just going to know, hey, look at that, it's cheaper now. Great, wonderful. So it's going to put a lot of grease in the economy and make things work better and more efficiently. And I think that's probably, in terms of big picture stuff, which tokenomics is about, that's one of the important aspects. But let me give you a little part of the journey, my introduction to this ecosystem. So we can kind of move on through there, and I'll go through some numbers. I'll talk a lot about ICOs, because this is an area that I have a lot of familiarity with, and it's also an example of where the tokenomics movement really started. You might have heard a lot of bad things about ICOs and cryptocurrency in general, but we can brush some of that aside, because I think the underlying technology is what's really important, and there's a lot of really important people, businesses, and institutions working on it. So the blockchain is really about truth. It's about decentralizing trust and taking it from the hands of the few and into the hands of the many. So when you talk about trust agents like banks, that they are the few, and the idea of a distributed ledger, suddenly the ledger is being held in thousands of computers globally. That's putting the trust into the hands of the many. What does this mean for banks? I talked to a lot of bankers in Kuwait, interestingly enough, and I find the general temperatures that they feel quite threatened by it, because really they are the intermediaries, and when computers start replacing humans, then it gets interesting, and they feel the threat. So the average cost of the anything under $25 transacted through traditional financial institutions is a money loss. That causes a lot of problems in terms of moving money around. It takes a lot of time. So everything, like for instance, every transaction at PayPal is worth anything under $25 is not making them any money. Actually, it's losing them money. So when you have systems where you remove the humans as the intermediaries for money transfer, and you get the cost of money transfer to near zero, because computers are doing this, then that is a threat to the business model. And what banks are going to do in the future, they may become distributed ledger technology experts, or who knows what direction they're going to go in. But it'll be interesting to see the need for where they're going to fit into this new economy or tokenomics in the future. We'll have to see. So distributed by cyberspace, distributed by the internet. That's how the ledger is distributed. That's how it's moved around and placed on many computers. And it's gained by code. One of the great things that Satoshi Nakamoto, him, her, or they, we don't know. We don't know who invented Bitcoin, because they disappeared. Maybe they came from the future, I don't know. But he did a lot of game theory. That's what makes it really work. There's an incentive for people to mine Bitcoin, and there's an incentive for people to be truthful about things. So that's the, it's not just about code, it's not just about algorithms, but it's also about sociology, game theory, and how people think and what incentivizes them and what keeps them honest. And that's really what makes Bitcoin work. And Bitcoin's never been hacked, by the way. It's gone for 10 years now. It's a 10-year anniversary, actually, almost. And, it's a successful system in the way it was built in many aspects. In some aspects, it's not successful. In some aspects, it's changed drastically from the vision that Satoshi had, which his Herbert Day vision, I keep saying it, maybe Satoshi's vision was very much about people mining from their own computers in their homes and, making a very open source community thing. And we can move money around without banks, and we can move digital assets around without banks, etc., etc. But I don't think Satoshi ever envisioned these massive Chinese farms, mining farms, and using more energy than the country of Denmark next year. That's how much energy it takes to run Bitcoin. The average transaction cost monthly is the equivalent of 1.5 American households in their energy use. So it's pretty inefficient, actually, when you look at it from an energy perspective. Imagine if that was all running, on oil, I guess. But this is the Bitcoin was just the beginning. It was, the genesis, the beginning, the start of it all. And that was the one consensus mechanism, that's proven to actually work, even though it's inefficient in many ways. Now we're looking at probably 20 to 30 consensus mechanisms that are out there floating around. And there's maybe 1,000, maybe less, maybe 100 people in the world that can really understand this technology deeply enough to actually write new consensus mechanisms. It's very highly complicated mathematics and algorithm design. But it's not just the math, there's also the sociology and game theory stuff, which makes it kind of a very unique profession. As I think tokenomics will be a unique profession of its own in the future. And a tokenomist is really someone that understands how tokenomics works and how to design tokens to operate. And it's being honest by algorithms. And it's going to affect all industries, I think. There's a slide I have further on that says 84% of all industries are looking at blockchain at the moment, in one form or another. So, is it a hype? Yes, of course. But as Bill Gates once said, people tend to overestimate what happens in the next 2 years, and they tend to underestimate what happens in the next 10. So, I think there's a lot of transition. We're in this Wild West phase right now, this whole industry. It's so fresh and so young. I mean, how can you get considered a veteran after 40 years? Only in this industry, I suppose. So, Joseph Schumpeter is quite an interesting character, but he said something called creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. And I'm using kind of Polaroid or Kodak, actually, I should put there, and look what we're doing today. And that's an example of a company that was, almost an American institution at one point. Just imagine that's Kodak, not Polaroid, with the wrong logo. And it's the same with the compact disc and Spotify. There's many industries. I mean, I'm an ex-journalist, right? Still a journalist, I still write. And look what happened to my industry, and look what's happening to it. How there is a kind of a form of creative destruction going on. We're evolving into something new, new form of revenue models. And we don't know where this is going and how it's going to change. So this kind of slide scared the bankers a little bit, I think. Now, this is kind of a slide for local use, but ledgers are really interesting. And this is what Bitcoin and blockchain and this tokenomics is really based on. A lot of it is based on distributed ledgers, which make this possible. So the ledger is an integral part of what we're doing and why it's happened. Now, the ledger is a very interesting thing because actually in southern Mesopotamia, when humans invented writing, proto-cuneiform, they only did it to record transactions between people. They weren't love letters. They weren't letters to people around them. They were actually the recording of transactions between people. So ledgers have been an integral part of the growth of civilization in many ways. And now we're taking the ledger, ever since the Medici age of dual reporting, I think that part. This is the probably the most radical change to happen in hundreds of years. I think that's my opinion. So this is kind of an interesting story that maybe helps you understand consensus and money and what money is. Because actually, a lot of people don't really understand what money is. And when you ask people, they kind of think about it twice. Well, what is money? Why do you know what gives it value? It's not gold. It's not backed by gold. Some people say it's backed by bullets. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you the story about Yap. Yap is a little island in the South Pacific. It's not too far from Palau, I think, in Micronesia. And the islanders there, for the last 400 years, they've been sailing off to Palau and Guam and to other islands. They've been hacking these huge stones out of the quarry, the hole in the middle. They bring them back to the island, and this is their currency, actually. This is what has value. It's scarce. Well, you know, it has scarcity, which is interesting. It's, you know, and they have to work for it. They have to go to the other island and hack it out. It takes them 3 days, and then they have to sail 400 miles back to the island. So they bring these stones back. But they, you know, if I'm going to buy 15 cows from you or 15 goats, I don't really, you know, you're not going to really want to. I'm not going to really want to wheel my coin over your place. You live on the other side of the island. So we basically keep all the stones. They keep all the stones in the center, in the village, or the beach, wherever it is. And when they transfer value of the coin, so I'm going to give you the coin, you're going to give me the goats. And the island, by consensus, agrees that you now own that coin. So everybody knows that you own the coin. That's fine. Everybody agrees. We have a consensus. That coin has value, and you now have it. That's kind of interesting and fun, and you know, it's a small example of consensus. But what makes it really interesting is sometimes when they were sailing back from Palau, they would lose a coin. I think 3 or 4 times they lost coins over the years because of bad weather. So off the coast, they had to throw the coin over to save the boat or whatever. Maybe it fell off. I don't know. But they would get back to the island, and they would, you know, it's like we lost the coin, but they still mined it. They still worked for it. They you know, everybody on the boat said, yeah, we had it. You know, we lost it. Well, the islanders were sensible enough to say, well, okay, it doesn't matter if we can't see it. We still consider the value, the coin part of our economy. So the next time you come to me and you want to buy 15 goats from me, you got another coin, but it's the coin that's 300 miles that way and 2 miles down. And you say, well, you can have that coin, and oh, okay, well, I'll give you 10 sheep for that one. And the island would agree by consensus that the value of that coin that they couldn't see, it didn't matter if they could see it or not, was now being transferred from you to me. So it didn't matter if they saw it. It just mattered that they all agreed that it existed, and they agreed it had a value. So, in a way, that's kind of like what Bitcoin is. And in a way, consensus is a little bit different how it plays out with Bitcoin, but it kind of gives you a rough idea of at least using an example of how blockchain works. They call it the blockchain coin. People in my industry it's kind of a joke, but. Here you can see 84% of companies are dabbling in blockchain. New survey says PwC. This is pretty new, actually. And PwC finds blockchain distrust high. You know, I know that, or I've heard since I've been here, that people lost money in the crypto coin space and blockchain, and you know, it kind of doesn't have a really. Bitcoin never had a good reputation or a good name because Bitcoin is only here. Blockchain is only here because people traded it on the dark web for drugs. You know, for hitmen or whatever else they do on the dark web. But that's where it started, people started to use it because it was a way to transfer value. It couldn't be recorded by or found out by the authorities because it's pseudo-anonymous. You just need a key. That's all you are. You don't have to have ID or anything, right? So it built up in this sort of dark, this mysterious place called the dark web. And that didn't help its reputation either. So when I was starting off with blockchain, people were like, corporations that I was working with and, you know, incumbents, and they'd say, well, you know, just keep Bitcoin out of it. You know, don't mention that word. Just call it blockchain. So everybody's like blockchain, to try and stay away from it. And now, even here in Kuwait, I was like, don't mention cryptocurrency too much. Like, we'll call it crypto assets. So, you know, now we're moving on to this kind of tokenomics thing, which takes hopefully a bird's eye view of this whole evolving ecosystem. And we're getting away a little bit. But this is one of the things I think that I hope will happen with Kuwait in the future is more education and you know, more awareness from the public, government officials, the corporates here, because other countries are involved. They are dealing with it. You know, the European Commission has agreed to kind of put hands off this whole ICO fundraising scenario and cryptocurrency exchanges. They want to kind of see how it plays out, see where it's going. You have two real schools of pressure, really, in terms of the political perspective. And one is the politicians who are kind of backed by the banks and the incumbents who are like, we don't want this stuff. You know, it's dangerous. It comes from the dark web. you know, it's bad, we need to have KYC, people are getting ripped off. And then you have the other spectrum, the other side of the spectrum, which is like innovation is possibly the only thing that we're going to, one of the most important sectors that all countries are looking at to grow, and grow, you know, create new economies for their young people, et cetera, et cetera. So these two kind of powers that be are colliding within many governments. The central bankers are definitely resisting, but on the same side, they're also really working on their own cryptocurrencies. A lot of China, Kuwait announced last night also their own crypto asset, I'll call it, sorry, not cryptocurrency. You know, Sweden, lots of different countries their central banks and financial authorities are working on projects in their sandboxes, etc. So on one hand, they're resisting, and on the other hand, they're making sure that they're aware of what's coming, or trying to educate themselves to the maximum in terms of what's happening. So companies providing enterprise-grade blockchain solutions, this was more for last night, but you can see that there's quite a few, you know, there's 84% of companies are dabbling in blockchain, and then there's a lot of new companies. These are not ICOs, these have nothing to do with cryptocurrency at all. These are companies that are building distributed ledger technology for corporates. And they're probably working, a lot of these companies are working in the Gulf region. Yes, sir?
ICO is a company that works on these? What's an ICO?
Okay, let me explain what an ICO is then. I'm going to go back. An ICO is an acronym for initial coin offering.
Initial?
Initial coin offering.
Coin offering.
You know what an IPO